Welcome back to WD.
FM, the official Walt Disney Family Museum podcast. We're your hosts, Brie Bertolucci, Marketing Manager.
And Chris Mullen, Senior Marketing and Communications Coordinator at the Walt Disney Family Museum.
Happy August and welcome, foolish mortals, to our Museum Musings episode. Is August too early to get a little spooky, Chris?
Not when it's the celebration of the Haunted Mansion that debuted at Disneyland on August 9th, 1969. Those happy haunts materialized 54 years ago, and it might be a little fun to chat a bit about the Haunted Mansion today.
Well, I love the Haunted Mansion. So we'll kind of give you some quick facts about its development. Now, the exterior of the mansion was built in 1962-63, and the interior development was halted by the 1964-65 New York World's Fair. So the structure actually stood there for many years without having anything inside of it. So guests could kind of wonder what was coming in this wonderful mansion out in New Orleans Square. Now, the Imagineers' attention was all shifted to design the New York World's Fair attractions, Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln, It's a Small World, Magic Skyway, and the Carousel of Progress for the World's Fair. Walt had always envisioned having a haunted house attraction at his park. In really early designs of Disneyland, you can actually spot a spooky looking house at the end of Main Street, USA on some of those early design maps. There were many designs and concepts considered for the mansion. Imagineer Rolly Crump actually designed a concept called Museum of the Weird. And at one point, the attraction was intended to be a walkthrough.
Rolly Crump's weird concepts, combined with Mark Davis's dark humor and Claude Coates' straight scares, created a bold and timeless attraction that was truly unique. With Bob Gurr's invention of the Omnimover ride system, allowing for the Haunted Mansion's iconic Doom buggies to scoot through the building, this solved the problem of potential traffic flow issues with the walkthrough idea. Walt always wanted the mansion to look elegant on the outside instead of a house in a scary state of disrepair. He said he'd keep up the outside and let the ghosts take care of the interior.
Walt unfortunately never saw the attraction's final resting place. Haunted Mansion would debut almost 3 years after his passing. Chris, there are just so many iconic scenes within the attraction. What is your favorite scene in Disneyland's Haunted Mansion?
I think my favorite scene is the graveyard scene. It's really the crescendo of the whole attraction. You get the quaking caretaker, the singing busts, ghosts popping up around gravestones. There's just so much to take in. I've been writing it for my whole life and still see things I've never seen before.
I love the graveyard scene. It is very spooky, and I just feel so bad for the caretaker every time I see him and his poor dog, and I'm like, let's throw this dog a bone.
Also, feed that dog.
Yes, that's the whole point. I'm just like, oh my goodness, like you need some food. Well, my favorite scene, I really love the Pepper's Ghost effect in the ballroom. And the first time I ever went in the Haunted Mansion, I was about 10 years old, and I was so terrified. It wasn't until my second time viewing that I was writing it that I didn't have my eyes covered. And the ballroom scene just had such a big impact. And I feel like it is so lively. And I'm always hoping that the Doom buggy stops while overlooking that room so I can just, scour that room, finding all these new different details that I might have missed before. I find something new every time. And I just also love the use of the Pepper's Ghost practical effect that uses reflections to accomplish the look of ghosts ghouling around the ballroom.
I love the dueling portraits that are shooting at each other. It definitely gives me Hamilton vibes.
Yes.
Well, it is the season of the Haunted Mansion. I'm so looking forward to seeing the new movie. That cast is stacked.
Yeah, me too. I'm seeing it this week. So,
all right.
Well, now it is time for our museum updates. This month's film screening is Oliver and Company, about an abandoned kitten who finds his forever home. Chris, you must have written this. Encountering adventure and a pack of streetwise dogs along the way.
On Saturday, August 12th, join us for an in-depth discussion of the music of the Silly Symphonies, Walt Disney's groundbreaking experimental series of short films that ran from 1929 to 1939, with composer Fabrizio Mancinelli. Mancinelli will provide expert insight into how the short film's musical scores delighted audiences, advanced animated storytelling, and contributed to the popularity and success of the Walt Disney Studios.
On Saturday, August 19th, join us in welcoming Disney legend and voice of Goofy and Pluto, Bill Farmer, for an in-depth discussion of his television show, It's a Dog's Life, highlighting working dogs across the United States. Following the talk, we are pleased to present a very special presentation by Guide Dogs for the Blind, showcasing the skills of one of their highly trained service dogs. And I just love dogs with a job, so this will be such a great program.
Well, also, don't miss out on our two current exhibitions on view. Pencils and Passion, a student art exhibition, is free to view in our lower lobby gallery, open now through August 1st, 2023. Disney Cats and Dogs is now open in the Diane Disney Miller Special Exhibition Hall through January 14th, 2024.
Now let's get into our collections clash. Now, last month, in celebration of the 4th of July, the topic was Walt's patriotism. Now, let's do a recap of last month's results. For the first round, it was between Chris's pick of the Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln display that received 63% of the votes, and my pick of the Presidential Medal of Freedom that received 37%.
I haven't seen a result like that for at least 47 years ago. For round two, it was between Bree's pick of the 48-star flag that received 45% of the votes and my pick of the Olympic torch that won the round with 55% of the votes.
Now, in the final round, it was between your pick of the America the Beautiful attraction poster that received 26% of the votes and my pick of Walt's passport that won the round with 75% of the vote. Congrats, Chris, on your win again.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, this month's collections clash, we were inspired by Walt's love of animals, and we are selecting objects in our galleries that feature an animal. Since we recently celebrated our special exhibition, Disney Cats and Dogs, with the character clash, we are excluding all Disney cat and dog related objects, highlighting the other incredible animals we feature throughout our galleries.
Now, throughout Walt's life, he loved animals, and animals were characterized in the early animations he did in Kansas City. From Mickey Mouse to his cartoon shorts like Three Little Pigs and animated feature films like Bambi, animals were used to tell stories. Walt said, quote, "You'll not find a single mousetrap around the house. I'll never forget it was a mouse that made me what I am today."
Such a great quote. Walt was interested in the animal kingdom and sent husband and wife team Alfred and Elma Malott to go film animals in Alaska. With that footage, he narrowed down to focus on the seals and asked the Malotts to emphasize the life cycle of the seals and not show any indication of man's presence. In 1948, the first of Walt's true life adventure nature documentary series, Seal Island, debuted. It would go on to win that year's Best Short Subject Too Real Academy Award. Walt said, quote, "You've probably heard people talk about conservation. Well, conservation isn't just the business of a few people. It's a matter that concerns all of us. It's a science whose principles are written in the oldest code in the world, the laws of nature. The natural resources of our vast continent are not inexhaustible, but if we use our riches wisely, if we will protect our wildlife and preserve our lakes and streams, these things will last us for generations to come."
Now, one last Walt quote that I think kind of sums up Walt's impact on the public's understanding and appreciation of animals is, quote, "Our films have provided thrilling entertainment of educational quality and have played a major part in the worldwide increase in appreciation and understanding of nature. These films have demonstrated that facts can be as fascinating as fiction, truth as beguiling as myth, and have opened the eyes of young and old to the beauties of the outdoor world and aroused their desire to conserve priceless natural assets." I just love when Walt talks about conservation and so much how that really does relate to today's efforts in conservation. Well, with that, Chris, what is your first pick?
Well, we've got so many great two-dimensional representations of animals, lots of concept art, lots of photographs, but I'm going three-dimensional on my first pick. My first pick is Pepe del Presidio, a replica of the audio animatronics Barker bird formerly positioned outside the entrance to Walt Disney's Enchanted Tiki Room at Disneyland. Our bird was named in honor of the museum's location in the Presidio of San Francisco. He's located in the 1964-65 New York World's Fair and Epcot, part of Gallery 9, showcasing the mechanized magic of audio animatronics technologies, brought to life with a working version of the bird Walt Disney employed to invite visitors at Disneyland into his landmark Tiki Room show. After a brief film about the history of audio animatronics, guests can use an authentic programming joystick to experience the fine art of figure animation for themselves. Walt Disney once said of audio animatronics, quote, "It's just another dimension in the animation we have been doing all our life." I really love that quote because you wouldn't think to connect animation in a movie sense to animating mechanical figures for a theme park, but Walt clearly saw that through line and felt like it was all related. So just a cool way to see what Walt was thinking. Pepe was a gift to the museum from Garner Holt Productions, Inc., the world's largest creator of animatronic characters and the primary animatronics provider for Disney theme parks.
Well, that was such a great pick, Chris. Thanks to Pepe Del Presidio, I always have the wrong version, or not the wrong version, but the museum's version of the Enchanted Tiki Room song. Thanks to audio animatronics in the Tiki Room. I experienced the attraction in a whole other light. Now
It's catchy. It's catchy, and
it's almost too catchy.
yeah, I also appreciate that. I can mark my time at the museum by the age of Pepe because I actually started at the museum a week before Pepe opened to the public. So
Oh wow, that's so fun.
yeah, we've been serving for a long time together. Him and I, we've gone through a lot together, but we're still here.
I love that. Well, for my first pick, I'm going with the pastel drawings of Bambi by animator Mel Shaw.
Ooh, I love those. That was going to be my next pick.
They're just so beautiful. And these pastel drawings we have on display in our Bambi case, they're on black paper, and there's an adult Bambi in the forefront and an owl on a tree behind him. Now, this particular concept drawing just glows with the use of the pastels on that black background. A little about Mel Shaw. He met Walt by playing polo semi-professionally for the Rivera Country Club. Walt had a membership there, and he knew Mel was at the time animating with Walt's Kansas City friends, Hugh Harmon and Rudy Ising. Walt, ever looking out for the best talent, soon hired Shaw to work at the studio. Walt would later approach Shaw to ask him to start working on Bambi. Mel Shaw contributed to the development of key scenes, offering his talents to envision, among other things, the memorable rainstorm sequence. He produced an exquisite array of pastel, ink, and watercolor studies for the film that we have on display. This pick is among them. These pieces were often impressionistic and just full of possibility for animated adaptation. Now, in 2016, we held an exhibition of his work, Mel Shaw, an animator on horseback, that showcased his career spanning from Fantasia all the way to The Lion King.
Yeah, just a crazy body of work to have worked at the studio or have had work spanning from the 1940s through the 1990s. I mean, to see animation from beginning to end of Walt's kind of influence, or not end of Walt's influence, because we're still being influenced by Walt today, but to see that the change in the medium over time through Mel Shaw's work with the studio was just so cool to see.
Yeah, that exhibition was incredible.
Well, great pick, Bree. And since it's the snake style draft, you get to go next too.
For my next pick, I'm going with a rabbit we haven't featured much in our collections clash, Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. We have two posters on display, and the one I wanted to highlight is an early design of Oswald, who's actually depicted just solid white. And the text on the poster says, "Howdy, folks, I'm Oswald the Lucky Rabbit." Below it has the credits, produced by M. Winkler, known as Margaret Winkler. And also says drawn by Walt Disney and distributed by Universal. It would be Universal Studios that own the character, and Margaret Winkler's husband, Charles Mintz, that would retain the rights to Oswald, leaving Walt to create a new character, Mickey Mouse. Now, Walt created 26 silent cartoons for Oswald the Lucky Rabbit series between 1927 and 1928. Disney would acquire the rights back to Oswald from Universal in 2006. When Oswald was brought back to Disney, Diane Disney Miller was quoted saying, quote, "Having Oswald around is going to be a lot of fun."
Also a great pick. And I love that little bit of trivia that the Oswald rights in 2006 were traded for the contract of Al Michaels, a sports broadcaster, which he also appreciates being part of that trivia. But a great pick considering, we know the famous Disney animal characters over the years, and Oswald goes a little unheralded outside of the historical circles. But Oswald's importance to Walt's career and the trajectory of American animation cannot be understated.
Yes, exactly. And he has a great presence in Disney's California Adventure Park these days. So I love how you can meet him. And Oswald fits perfectly into that era of time when Walt came to Hollywood, being one of his first fully animated character series. So I love having him there.
Me too. He's so cute. And those Oswald ears are great too.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Well, for my second pick, I'm picking the mechanical wind-up animals from Les Zooms Mécaniques in Paris located in Gallery 7B. So I'm going on a more audio animatronics path for my first two picks.
I like the theme.
Thank you. Thank you. We're really in motion right now.
Yeah.
Diane recalled, quote, Dad went out shopping on his own when we were in Paris. He came back to the hotel room with two large bags from a toy store filled with wind-up toys. He unpackaged them, wound them all up, and studied them as we looked on, amused but puzzled. Quote, It's amazing that you can get such interesting movement from a very simple mechanism, he explained. These toys were part of that purchase that somehow survived. Several more are in the Walt Disney archives. Not terribly unique, but possibly the forerunners of audio animatronics, end quote.
I love that pick. That's a really great one, and one that people might miss when you're, with your magnifying glass looking at all those great miniatures in that particular gallery. But I just love the idea that it's kind of like a childlike purchase for him, and that really sparked something of like how those characters moved and inspired so much more.
And it was perfect in that time period, too, that Walt was obviously a huge filmmaker, but he also stoked his creativity in other ways. And when he saw something that he didn't quite understand how it worked, he wanted to open it up and see it all unfold. And we see that kind of childlike wonder and curiosity, not just in his films, but then in developing theme parks. So it's very much still a part of the story of that time. So I think it's a good pick for that reason.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that that's why there is what I kind of describe as so much whimsy in our galleries when you're like, wait, he was interested in that too? Oh, that led to this? Like he had a little train in his backyard, like there's so much, curiosity and creativity that Walt, cultivated within himself that led to so many different projects throughout his life and just kind of that imagination kind of run wild. So I love that. Well, Chris, you have the next pick.
And for my last pick, no big surprises here. I'm picking the Mr. Toad maquettes in Gallery 7A.
Love that.
Yes. Ratty, Angus McBadger, and Mr. Toad all in one set. If they put those out today, you would definitely see them on my little desk here. They're just I just think they're so neat. They're character model figures made of plaster on metal armature, and they just completely encapsulate what the character looks like at every angle, and was obviously used by the animators as reference while they were making film.
Yeah, I love that. The great 3D representation of the characters. And I love how throughout our galleries we have so many of those where, just knowing that an animator would, rotate the character in different ways to get all the different perspectives of how to animate and bring that character to life. So, we need more Mr. Toad merchandise. So, some of these maquettes would be perfect for for some future merch to be housed on your desk.
I'm glad to hear you say that. We're actually going to edit out the clip where you say we need more Mr. Toad merchandise, and I'm just going to play it on a loop for you when you give us more Mr. Toad slander.
Well, I mean, I won't be purchasing it, but I'm glad that there's an audience for it. I couldn't help myself. There has to be a little bit of the Mr. Toad slander somewhere. Well, for my final pick, I'm going with the Three Little Pig wind-up toys that we have on display. The Three Little Pigs was a 1933 Silly Symphony short film and won the Academy Award in 1934 for Best Animated Short. Now, what I do love about our collections clash is that it forces me to kind of look into some of these objects that we have on display, especially some of the merchandise. And I haven't spent a lot of time kind of looking into it, just admiring it in our galleries. But for these, I have loved these three little figures, and you can see the front and the backs of them in our galleries. I just love how it's displayed. But I was able to find some really cool information on it. Now, these three toys were actually manufactured by the Schuco Toy Company, founded in 1912 in Nuremberg, Germany. In 1934, Schuco struck a licensing deal with Disney, allowing them to design the toys from the film. Now, when wound up with a metal key, they actually can move and they start playing their instruments. Pfeiffer Pig is playing the flute, Fiddler Pig is playing the fiddle, and Practical Pig is playing the drum. Now, that's interesting because in the film, Practical Pig actually plays the piano. He's the one who builds his house with bricks. But it was actually easier to have the character play the drum instead of playing a piano for the purposes of this toy. So you can actually Google it and find kind of little videos of some other people's collections of these Schuco toys. And, you see them playing the drums or playing the fiddle and just kind of walking around. They move in a fun way. So, yeah.
I think it's a cop out. I think Schuco should have made a little piano that
I know.
practical, moves
A little
around with.
keyboard.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Could have been done. It could have been
Yes.
done. I'm not,
They took the easy way out.
I'm just a little disappointed. All right. Well, I think that was a great round. It's always just so hard to pick three objects in our galleries relating to our theme of the month. So now it's time to share some of the ones that didn't make our cut for our honorable mentions. These selections will not be up for voting. My first honorable mention is one that folks who visit the museum galleries might pass by and not even notice: the massive Bambi poster between the museum store and the cafe. Some of my favorite movie posters are the ones made for film releases in other countries, and this exquisite piece is the Italian movie poster from the film's initial theatrical run in 1942. And I think it's just so cool looking.
It is so beautiful. And what is really kind of a fun fact about all of those international movie posters is that they did not have to run their designs through Disney. And so that they could just design whatever their interpretation is of the film, however they wanted. So the fact that this one is just so beautifully detailed and, is a real gift. We do have other representations actually in the office spaces. We have that is what is decorating most of our office spaces. So there's a Polish poster, a very abstract version of Dumbo, just lots of very fun interpretations that Disney didn't unfortunately have the oversight, which today they have fixed that. So
Well, fixed.
yeah, yeah.
I love all the different art styles coming together representing the different films. But it does make it a lot simpler when you have one kind of set of poster designs.
Yeah, and one character look for each one, so you don't get the funky characters represented. Well, for my first honorable mention, we're going to take a look at the eighth wonder of the world, the backside of water. I'm going with the Jungle Cruise animals on the model, or
Ooh,
Disneyland model.
good pick. Wasn't even thinking about the model. I'll keep that in mind.
You usually always are the one picking off the Disneyland model, so I was taking a page out of your book.
Yeah, I was just thinking so literally with this month with animals. I was like, all right, I'm going to go through the galleries and look at all the different animal character artworks, and just zoomed right by the Disneyland model. Just didn't even give it a second thought.
Well, good. I'm glad I got this pick. Well, the model makers took great care to include some of the iconic moments of the attraction, including the elephant bathing pool, the explorers finding refuge on a totem pole, and of course, the backside of water. Now, the Jungle Cruise is an original opening day attraction. It has seen the most major expansions and updates than all of the opening day attractions at Disneyland. Originally, Walt wanted the Jungle Cruise attraction to include real animals. You can thank Imagineer Harper Goff, who convinced Walt that they should utilize mechanical animals as they could give guests the same experience on every ride. Now, I used to work on the Kilimanjaro safaris in Animal Kingdom at Walt Disney World Resort. And we used to like to say that we worked on the attraction Walt had envisioned for Jungle Cruise, where they were finally able to figure out how to give guests a unique experience on every ride through with live animals. So
That is a great pick. My second honorable mention is the Bill Pete Dumbo animation drawing in Gallery 6, right before the World War II section of the gallery. Made using oil pastel and graphite on paper, there's just so much great detail in this drawing. And I love, when you look back at Dumbo, one of the striking things about Dumbo is that Dumbo is an incredibly cute, appealing little character. But what a lot of people don't know is that the hand behind Dumbo, Vladimir Bill Teitla, Disney legend animator, before Dumbo, he worked on Chernabog in Fantasia and Stromboli in Pinocchio. And yet to go from those incredibly scary, terrifying, menacing characters to then little Dumbo, the range that he had.
I love that. I love when you can kind of trace these different animators and their careers and the different characters that they were able to kind of bring through. I feel like we often will talk about that particular thing with a more modern animator, Andreas Deja, how he was always doing villains, and then he did the cute and cuddly Lilo and Lilo and Stitch, and what kind of draws people to want to fight to get a villain, and when not wanting to be typecast as like you only do villains, that you can also animate cute and cuddly little elephants as well.
Yeah, or like Glenn Keane doing Ariel and Little Mermaid and Beast in Beauty and the
Yes.
Beast. there's so much talent to be able to not just have a particular lane of characters that you're good at, but to be able to master all sorts of character designs that vary wildly.
Makes you a legendary animator for sure, all of these people. But I
Absolutely.
will say about this Bill Pete drawing, I find that in the drawings of Dumbo is so cute and precious, but there is so much sadness in these drawings, in these graphite drawings, just like missing his mother. And so I really love how, like, this very cute character, but these dark kind of oil pastel graphite drawings, they just have like an element of sadness that I mean, maybe I'm just projecting onto because I know how sad I find Dumbo to be so sad to be.
Dumbo
So
is very sad.
yeah. Well, moving on to hopefully on a higher note. For my second pick, I'm going with the Tortoise and the Hare Silly Symphony calendar we have on display. This special calendar was gifted to the Walt Disney Family Museum by legendary animator Ward Kimball. It's part of his collection that we have. This calendar is from 1938 and depicts the scene from The Tortoise and the Hare, where Max Hare is assuming he will win with speed against Toby Tortoise. This Academy Award winning short was adapted from an Aesop's fable somewhere between 620 and 560 BC in ancient Greece. The short debuted in January 1935, and Toby Tortoise and Max Hare would be drawn together 1 year later for a boxing match in the film sequel, Toby Tortoise Returns. Try saying that 3 times fast.
I've never seen Tortoise and the Hare, so no spoilers. But I
What?
mean, the hare wins, right? The hare is so much faster than the tortoise.
I mean, you would think, right? That's who you're putting your money on, right?
I'm putting all my money on the hare.
Slow and steady wins the race, Chris.
That's where that's. Well, for my last honorable mention, since you went with something on our Disneyland model before, I'm going to go with the sea monster in the Submarine Voyage Lagoon. Yes,
That's a good pick.
we have a sea monster in our Disneyland model. You have to look just right. The Submarine Voyage Lagoon in Tomorrowland is the only negative space in the model. All other bodies of water are on the surface and painted, but the lagoon is hollow and filled in with gel. There is a sea monster in the lagoon. Just look just out of reach of the submarine headlight underneath a monorail support beam, and you'll see a little tail near the surface. So yeah, keep an eye out for that next time you're in the galleries.
I love that. Now, for my last pick, since Chris, you went with a more mythical animal, I'm going to go with one as well. Really stretching the terms of animal and,
That's fair. Well, this is the honorable mention, so stretch away.
This is exactly why we made this section. Now, we have a great display of artwork from the Silly Symphony's short Merbabies in our galleries. And yeah, this one's a bit of a stretch, but the poster of Merbabies does feature 2 merbabies, and they are riding a fish. So that is a real animal.
I love a technicality.
Yep. Now, Merbabies was a sequel to the 1935 short Water Babies. Merbabies depicts the activities of the adorable baby mermaids as they hold an underwater circus. Walt had the Harmon Ising Studio produce the Silly Symphony as freelancers to help with this short. This was released in 1938 and the year after Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. So that's when the studio was really focusing on feature-length animation. So they were hiring some outside help to help with the shorts. Now, this is the second time in one episode I've actually brought up Rudy Ising and Hugh Harmon. So that's a record. That was not something I had on my bingo card.
Yeah, well, I didn't know that they were brought in as ringers on that short. I'm learning something every day.
Yeah. So Walt worked with both of them back at Laugh-O-Gram Studios in the early 1920s in Kansas City, and they were part of the group that came out from Kansas City to start at the early Disney Brothers cartoon studio. So I just love how Walt still maintained these friendships with these early friends back in Kansas City, and you'll see them, see these different people pop up throughout his life, and that, he, his best friend Walt Pfeiffer, that even when he was a young kid in elementary school, was playing vaudeville acts, that Walt Pfeiffer was playing polo with him in the 1930s. So, and he was employed at the Disney studio until I think like the 1970s or something, like he really cared for his friends and took care of them. So when Rudy Ising and Hugh Harmon set out on their own cartoon studio, he was still saying, "Hey, let's bring you back in, help with some different things." So I love that.
Well, I think that's a perfect place to leave our collections clash. We've gone back to the 1920s. We've referenced films from the 90s and 2000s. This episode has really looked at the whole Disney film timeline.
And all the Disneyland timeline as well. We had a whole thing on the audio animatronics from, small to fully realized. So we've really run the gamut today.
Absolutely. The 59 submarine voyage, 63 with Tiki Room, the New York World's Fair, 64, 65, all in that time frame. We really covered a lot of ground in this episode. Well, that'll bring us to the end of this episode. Visit our Instagram stories today, August 9th, to vote on your favorite objects, or email us at podcast@wdfmuseum.org to cast your votes, or to tell us that we should have put one of our honorable mentions in our main spots. We won't feel too bad.
Thanks for tuning in to WDFM, the official Walt Disney Family Museum podcast. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, X, and Threads, and YouTube at WDF Museum for all the latest updates. We're all over the social media, so you'll be able to find us wherever you want.
In honor of Haunted Mansion, kindly step all the way in, please, and make room for everyone. There's no turning back now. Keep moving forward.
That was a good one, Chris.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.